My boyfriend complained about my cheap apartment until I reminded him why a 22-year-old lives this way. So I recently started dating this guy from one of my hobbies. He's 35, I'm 22. He asked me out first, and honestly, I had my doubts about the age gap from the beginning, but I gave it a shot. Here's the thing about my apartment. It's in an old house that used to be a single-family home, converted into separate units. The soundproofing is basically non-existent. The floors creak constantly. When people walk around, you hear it. When they live their lives, you hear that too. I've gotten completely used to it. My upstairs neighbor gets up at 4 in the morning every single day because he starts work at 5. I hear him moving around, making breakfast, getting ready. The girls in the apartments on either side of me watch their telenovelas until midnight. I hear their work calls during the day. On weekends, they have friends over and it gets a little louder. But you know what? I play music too. I have friends over. Sound leaks through my walls just like it leaks through theirs. So I would never complain about them because it goes both ways. That's just apartment living when you're in your 20s and you're on a budget. Then my boyfriend started coming over more often, and suddenly he had complaints. A lot of them. He wanted to go talk to my neighbors. He wanted me to text them and ask them to be quieter. I kept saying no, and it put me in this really awkward position. One of the first times he stayed over, we went to bed around 10. Almost immediately, he wanted me to ask my neighbor to turn down her TV. I told him it wasn't even that loud, and besides, she turns it off at midnight anyway. Just wait it out. Then at 4 in the morning, my upstairs neighbor got up like he does every single day. My boyfriend got so irritated. He was grumbling about the noise, about how inconsiderate it was. I reminded him that the guy would be done by 5 when he leaves for his shift. At 7, my boyfriend was still trying to sleep in. The neighbor on my other side started taking some work calls. He said he couldn't sleep through it. I offered him earplugs. He said he couldn't sleep with those either. He wanted me to ask her to be quieter. Every single time he stayed over after that, same thing. Someone walks across the floor above us. He comments. Someone's TV is on. He complains. My neighbors are literally just living their normal lives, and he acts like they're throwing ragers at 3 in the morning. I finally got so frustrated with him. I snapped. I said, you know, you can't expect to date a hot young 22-year-old and not want to deal with a 22-year-old's living situation. I put extra emphasis on the hot young part, making air quotes with my fingers, because those were his exact words when he talked about me to his friends, not mine. I continued. I don't know if you realize this, but this is a completely normal apartment for someone my age. Hell, my neighbors are pretty great compared to what it could be. Nobody's throwing loud parties on work nights. Nobody's having screaming fights at 2 in the morning. Nobody's got crying babies keeping everyone awake. He got really irritated. He asked why I was bringing age into this. I told him it's because he can't have it both ways. He can't want someone so young and also want someone with house kind of money. He was being completely out of touch with how normal people in their 20s actually live. That made him even more annoyed, but I didn't stop. Every time he complained about my neighbors after that conversation, I'd respond with, okay, boomer, or tell him that if he wanted me to have a rich person apartment, he could pay for it himself. Now, a lot of people would ask why we don't just stay at his place instead. Well, I can't. I don't have a car, and the buses don't go that far out into the suburbs where he lives, so for me to stay there, he'd have to drive 30 minutes from his house to pick me up in the city, then another 30 minutes back to his place. Then in the morning, he'd have to do an hour round trip to get me home in time for work. It's just way easier for him to come to me. But after all these arguments about my apartment, about my neighbors, about my life, I started thinking. I started questioning things. So I did something I probably should have done earlier. I Googled his property records, and I found out he co-owns his house with a woman who shares his last name. I don't know if she's his wife. I don't know if she's his ex-wife. I don't know anything, and honestly, I don't want to know. I blocked his number immediately. He can have fun figuring out where I went.